Why don't we want kids? Welcome back to After Our Happy Hour. We are your chaotic but cathartic co-hosts. I'm Jamila.
I'm Vicky.
I'm Sharon.
For today's episode, we're talking about kids. Specifically, why don't we want them?
I feel like the majority of us, like all three of us, do not want kids. And that's why we're doing this episode to kind of delve a little deeper on why we don't want kids. But do correct me if I am wrong, because it's been a minute since we've talked about wanting kids.
If you've been listening to our podcast for a while, you've probably kind of noticed that all three of us are kind of like meh about having kids. So now today we're like, why don't we just actually sit down and really talk about it why we don't have kids? Because I think some people's opinions have changed a lot or has gotten a lot stronger as to why they don't want kids. So yeah, let's get started. Sorry. So we have notes for these podcasts, and the first question was, how much does Vicky not like kids? And in parentheses, she's a teacher.
No, okay, let's start with do we all still stand by the fact that we don't want kids, or are we leaning against one side more than the other?
You kick us off.
I don't want kids, period.
Down.
I only want kids if it checks all of my boxes, which we could talk about later, what those boxes are. I'm not opposed to the idea of having kids, but I'm not I want to have kids. That's my life's goal.
I want kids until they can speak, and then I want them returned. I don't know, once you're responsible for a living, breathing thing that speaks and develops thoughts, that's a little intense for me. I don't know how it's going to turn out. So I don't know about that one. The only reason why I feel like I would ever really want kids is if I'm married to the love of my life and I want to start a new chapter with him. Other than that, I don't want kids.
This is my side tangent question. Do you think you will be married to a person that's not the love of your life?
I don't want that though.
I know. I'm just saying. Do you think if that person isn't the love of your life, you wouldn't get married to that person?
If I'm married to someone and I don't have kids, then he's not the love of my life. Sorry, just kidding.
I just want to say, I'm going to put out there that Claire Marshall is 38 this year and she's single and thriving. So, if she can do it, I can fucking do it.
Yeah, but she also likes independent. You like independence. You like alone time.
Yeah. I don't want to be single, Vicky.
No.
Me either. I can't.
Yeah. No, Jam can't. I don't want to. Vicky actually wants to be single, okay? There's a difference.
Yeah. So, I'll be really happy for you if you're 38 and thriving, you're doing what you love, and you love your life. You don't want off yourself,
Jam learned a new slang and she can't let it go anymore.
So I'll be really happy for you. But like Sharon said, she doesn't want to be single and I can't be single.
Yeah,
right.
Versus Jam and I, if we're 38, we would be 38 and questioning our entire existence of what is wrong with us and why are we single.
Not even 38. At 28, if I don't have a boyfriend that I feel like I want to marry, I think I'll be questioning my entire life existence.
Anyways, back to kids.
Yeah, so, actually Sharon kind of talked a little bit about too, why don't she want kids? But I guess, Vicky, why don't you want kids?
There's so many more reasons for me to not have a kid than there is to have a kid. I feel like the only reason why there's an inkling of me oh, maybe I should have a kid is the society concept of you are a woman and you should give birth to a child because you're continuing the next generation, and having a kid is the best thing in your life and da 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 da. But I'm just if I'm living to reproduce another human in this shitty ass world that I don't even want to be in, why am I living? It'll make me question myself even more. If anyone watches Grey's Anatomy, you know this scene. But there's a scene where Christina Yang, she is with Hunter and they are about to get married, and they're just, I think they were married and they're discussing having kids, and Christina Yang does not want kids. She's career driven. She wants to be the best heart surgeon and she has a goal in life, which is to be good at her job. And then this man she loves with all her life, he wants to have kids, and she's if I have a kid, I have to take time off. I have to stop what I'm doing and sacrifice all these things for the kid because she's a woman and she has to nurture the baby and things like that. And and then they have a big fight where for him it's a deal breaker. If she were to not want kids and not have kids with him, they'd like end their relationship, and like she loves him. And so then they get into a huge fight over it, and Christina is like debating. And then Meredith Grey, who is Christina Yang's best friend, approaches Hunter and was like, hey, like it's none of my business, but it's gotten to the point where I need to say it. But don't make Christina Yang have this kid, because if she does, she's going to hate the kid for stopping her career, and then she's going to end up hating herself for hating this kid because she gave birth to this kid. That's going to be me, because like I can't tell you why I want to have a kid, but I can tell you why I don't want to have a kid. So if I were to have a kid, like out of the obligation and like I gave birth to this child, I will love it. I'm calling it an it, and that says a lot already. I'm gonna love the baby, and I will be a good mother. But then internally, it'll be heaven and hell for me. And why would I put myself through that, knowing that is gonna be such a struggle for me?
Damn.
Yeah, after she said that, or after she told me that video clip reference, I'm like, I get it.
Yeah, like I literally, the only reason for me to even England and want a kid is like the society told me that I should, and like that's not a reason to have a kid.
So, what makes you ick more? The idea of having a kid or the idea of marrying someone?
Definitely having a kid.
Yeah, having a kid.
Oh, really?
Wait, Vicky wants to get married, or like
It's, you guys are like gonna die fucking alone and enjoy it,
No,
okay?
it's because commitment wise.
Yeah, if I met someone that I'm more open to that idea. Like the only reason I'm not is because I have commitment issues and I'm like willing to work on that. I'm just like I don't care enough for that right now. I don't want to
Yeah.
work through my commitment issues because I have bigger problems in life. But for kids, it's not even like there's a problem to work through. It's just like period, I don't want a kid. There's nothing to work through. You can't. It's not like I had a trauma experience or something with a child that you can work through, you know?
So then if you were in that same position of like the thought of you meeting the love of your life seems so bizarre, right? At this moment in
Yeah.
your life. So let's say you meet somebody who like flips your switch. I don't know if that's hard to imagine. I don't know, just do it somehow. Let's say you meet that person and he wants a kid, but it's obviously not to the point where he will like make you have a kid, but like he really really wants a kid. You think that would be a deal breaker if he were like, "Oh, our relationship is over if we don't have a kid?"
Mm. No, I see like Jam and I talked about this. I forgot when, because she asked me the same question where it's like, if I meet the love of my life, like would I change my mind? And I don't necessarily think it's a toxic thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. If he is like very adamant that he wants kids and he wants me to have it, but it could make or break our relationship. Like it's okay for him to want kids and stuff, but if I'm still very adamant that I don't want kids, I would give him the free pass. Like we'll break up and like I'll be heartbroken, whatever. But like, will I change my mind? It'd be very, very hard. It's not like a financial thing. It's not like I don't think I'll find someone who'll love the kid with me, like all these things. It's literally like, why am I putting another person into this earth that I don't want to be in? Like, there's not enough reasons to want to procreate another thing. And I don't particularly like love kids. Like when I look at them, I'm sorry, I don't know why it's a reflex to call them it. It's like the abstract idea of them. Like if I look at a child, I don't feel love. I'm just like, oh, they're a kid. Like they exist, they'll grow up, and like, yeah, it's beautiful. I think motherhood is a beautiful thing, but I don't need it. I didn't grow up with this idea of like, I want to have a family, I want to have kids. Like I grew up like, I want to be rich. I want to like do all this thing with my life. So I just can't imagine having a child. Like I don't even know what would it take for me to like genuinely be like, oh my God, I want a baby.
Actually, I feel like that might be a very common thing. I was just thinking about if I were on the side of I really wanted a kid and I had a partner who really didn't want a kid, and it had nothing to do with, oh, he doesn't love me enough, nothing like that. But if he just really didn't want a kid and I did, I think that's a very real problem probably for a lot of couples, and that would be a very hard situation to be in.
No, I was at a salon once, and a lot of gossip happens at a salon. And one of the clients, she was talking with the hairstylist, and basically she was talking about she was in this like long-term relationship for like I think 8 years or something. And then it was never established firmly that the guy didn't want kids. Like in the beginning, I think he kind of talked about it, but they never established firmly like he didn't want kids until towards the end of the relationship when he's like, I don't want kids, but she really wants to have kids. And that ultimately like led them to break up. And I think that was just like really shitty part on the guy's part. I think it's just if you're gonna get into a long-term relationship, like you have to make it clear like if you want kids or don't don't want kids. And that girl basically just like, I spent 8 years of my life basically loving you, and kind of like wasted her time when the outcome or when her hopeful results was like never there, because he never established like firmly that I don't want kids. He kind of just left it in the air.
Now that I think about it more, like if I met truly my match made in heaven and he wants to have kids, like I might be able to make that. Like that's the sacrifice of it. But like there's a lot of talking, like so much talking before that. And like I have to be sure if I don't have this man in my life, I'll die type of love. Cause like that's the one thing I don't like about pregnancy and motherhood is like nobody talks about the bad side of things. It's until recently that I feel like it's more common for people to even talk about miscarriages, how common that is. Or like sometimes moms hate their kids and that's okay. And like things like that is never really talked about because it's so taboo. It's so hard for people to admit that kids are annoying, but like they fucking are. And like there's only certain moments that are good, but there's more moments that are like you're always worrying, you're always paranoid, you're always like there's always something with a child that's not always love, and that part I just can't. No.
So it's not even about, let's say you are guaranteed a good kid as in like they listen and all that stuff.
Yeah. Beyond the kid, like look at our world, climate change, education system, like probably gonna raise a kid in America because I don't know where else I want to be, but like look at America, all these different factors that is outside of my nurturing this kid. What if this kid grows up to be like me and be as depressed as I am? It would break my heart knowing that my kid went through what I'm going through. I can't control that because my parents can't control what I'm thinking. So it's just like there's so many risk factors to having a kid that I get you can't control everything, but I can control having a kid or not having a kid.
Wow.
I just heard Jam gulp loud and clear in my ear. What are you thinking, Jam?
The thing is, I always grew up with the thought that, not that I'm not going to have a kid, but I'm very okay with not having a kid, because my mom was always like, it's fine, like, you only have a kid, like, yeah. She always taught me how much responsibility it is to have a kid. So growing up, I had that mindset. And then now that I'm like older, my parents was really like, my mom was like, I want you to have a kid. I want you to have a kid. And my dad was like, I want you to have 2 kids so they don't get lonely. So now they're like more pro for it. I'm like, what the heck? Like, you guys always told me not to have a kid. But one, like, I don't love kids. I've never really loved kids growing up. Like, I don't ever look at them and be like, I want to play with you guys all the time. But I'm not exactly like bad with kids. Like, I'm actually very good with my nieces. Like, even when they're younger, I think I could be a good mom, but I'm not a patient person, which makes me feel like I can't be a good mom because you have to have a lot of patience. And then what would make me want to have a kid is, one, if I want to have this kid with this person that I'm with. And second, it's just like these boxes that have checked. For example, like I want to raise my kid the way that I was kind of raised. Like I was able to travel a lot. I was able to kind of just pursue any passions that I might have or interests I might have. So I want to raise my kid like the way I was raised and kind of give them the life that I want to give them. And yes, so it has to be person, life. And then I never really thought about the whole world thing. But then yes, to talk about it so much, like how the world, not that it's coming to an end, but there's just like a lot more shitty things in the world like now, even compared to like when we're younger. So with that, like now that's kind of worry. But then I don't know, maybe I just don't think that much, so it doesn't like stress me out as much. So I'm like more like neutral, I guess, if I'm with that person that I'm gonna have a kid with and it checks all my boxes. Like I feel like I could raise the kid the way I want to, and that like my husband could or will help out in that part too. Like it's not just gonna be me, like he's gonna have as equal as a part to raising that kid as me, like taking care of them at like 3 a.m. Like I'm not gonna be the one who's up all the time. Then I'm like very okay with having a kid, but I'm also very okay with not having a kid because I'm also selfish. And like post pregnancy, like it's already so hard for me to like get my dream body now, bruh. After pregnancy, you know how hard it'll be? And I love to eat, like, bruh. Yeah, it's just a selfish part of me. And actually, no, one thing that my brother told me that kind of, not like clicked my brain, but something, it resonated with me. It was just that, like, you have to be very, very patient with a kid, because when they're a kid, like they know nothing. All they know is what you tell them, what you teach them, how you behave, how you act. And I think that's the part that actually probably would stress me out the most, because I know like I'm not the most patient person, and I don't want my kid to feel like scared around me, or like, oh, mom is like not patient, or mom, oh my god, I got goosebumps. If a kid comes, but like, yeah, just like really having to like watch who I am as a person or how I act up, because I know how much that would influence the kid. I think that's the part that actually scares me a lot.
I see. For me, I think I grew up thinking I was always gonna have 2 kids. but not, oh, my end goal in life, or like I want to be a mom is my goal. I never was that kind of person. I just always thought if I had kids, it would be 2 kids. Then the older I got, the more I realized I don't want kids. I remember this so clearly. It was when Vicky and I lived together with like the boys, and then conversation came up of like, do we want kids? And Vicky and I were like, no. And the two guys were so shook. They were like, why? And they laid out all these reasons as to why we should want to have kids. And we were just like, no. But also, the older I get, the more I'm realizing I'm a maternal person. I told this to Jam, but I always liked dogs. Like, it was just like, oh, the dogs are cute, right? And then I think it's when my brain started maturing. Something happened where I love dogs. Like, I will go to their house just to play with Jax. Like, I love dogs. And then even when I see a kid, I'm like, oh my God, that kid is so cute. The way that I feel about a dog is how I feel towards a kid. So I think I'm a maternal person, and I would want a kid if it's like if I'm with the love of my life kind of thing. That's probably the only reason why I would want to have a kid. But the biggest reason as to at the end of the day not wanting a kid trumps all of that is because this world is shit. There's so many fucked up things about the world, and there's so many things that you can't control once you birth a child, that there's so many things that you may potentially get the short end of the stick. What if they turn out where like they have mental health issues, or like it was what Vicky said, like climate change, social media is disgusting. The thought of a 7-year-old having a phone, or like younger, and there's no age restrictions on certain apps and stuff like that, is just, kids nowadays don't go through a kid phase. They're just straight out the womb, teenagers, adults. Like, I hate that. And like technology and all of those reasons just like I think ruin the concept of having a kid. So those are the reasons why I don't want a kid. And I think if you think about it, having a kid is selfish. If I met the love of my life and I'm like, I want to have this next chapter in our lives together, that's a selfish decision because it's what you want. So therefore, that's why I wouldn't want kids.
Question. So both me and Vicky have experiences kind of like taking care of kids. Like, you've been a teacher, you also taken care of like kind of like younger children because you're cousins and stuff. Have you ever taken care of kids? Because usually you're kind of maternal, but I'm just wondering if you like ever taken care of kids, because you never told us.
Not like babysat or anything because all my family is like in Korea, but when I was younger, or even when I used to live back home, we would have like family friends who would have kids. I would always like playing with them. The only thing is, once the kid gets annoying, I don't want to deal with it. I don't have patience for that. Like, if a kid is acting poorly, I don't think it's necessarily a reflection of the parent. It's just if the kid is the way they are kind of thing,
Yeah.
which is really hard to deal with, I feel like.
Yeah.
But still, if I see a kid that's annoying, I'm like, ugh, I hate kids. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Dude, for me, it's not even like it gets to a point of annoying, but one thing that like tires me about kids is that you can only talk about things they want to talk about or that they can talk about. And then it gets so tiring because that's what you do the whole day. And that's so much energy. That's what drains me. I feel like I spent 2 weeks with my nieces. Every day I was so tired by the end of the day because it's just a constant conversation of what they want to talk about.
Would you be in the same predicament where if you met the love of your life and he said, oh, let's have kids, you'd be like, oh shit?
I think it'd be very oh shit. Because people make the argument of like, oh, don't you want a kid? Because when you're old with your partner, it's just gonna be you guys. It's gonna be so lonely and you need someone to take care of you. Like, those are selfish reasons, you know?
Yes.
So
I'm like, yeah, then just send me to a fucking nursery home and I'll die alone. Shit.
Like, I would not have a kid just in return of hopes like they're gonna take care of me when they're older. Like,
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of guys want kids more than
I
Because they
agree.
don't have to go through. Sorry, I'm being so bitter. But like, yeah, that's true. It's because they don't have to go through as much as we have to think about.
Okay, maybe just for me, I feel like growing up, my mom was always very transparent to me, like, what are your responsibilities of having a kid? It is a big thing, you know? But I feel like guys don't get that talk growing up. And especially when they see, like, it's always been like, oh, the dad's always working and the mom's always at home. So I feel like that's what they're, like, accustomed to. And then that's what their thinking is. And they don't really, like, stay back and take care of your kids. And, like, that's why I was like, if my husband cannot take care of the kids, like, as equal as I am, like, I'm not gonna have that kid.
Mhm.
So for Sharon, you talked about how like growing up you wanted to have 2 kids, and it's just that as you mature, as you kind of have been more exposed to the real world, you realize that like you don't want kids. But for Vicky, like, did that decision like not want to have kids ever change? Like, and if it did change, at what point in your life did it change, or did you realize you don't want kids?
I don't think I've ever been like adamant that I wanted kids. Maybe when I played MASH, I'd be like, yeah, I want 2 kids just to add it to the
With Zac
list.
Efron.
Yeah. Like things like that, I've definitely said it. Or like I've considered the idea of naming a fucking child. But I think it was college that really solidified like I don't want kids. I think it was probably Donald Trump's election that I was just like, this world is too shit. When that went into play and I saw how many people around me were affected by that election and like how their lives would change, just so many negativity happening in the world that I was like, I cannot put another person into this world. And like that was solely based on the fact that like, okay, maybe I do want kids, but the world is too bad. And then I became a teacher and it really like nailed the nail into the coffin where I was like, it's not even the world. Like, I personally am not a kid person. Seeing how I am as a teacher with kids and having my own and comparing the two, because sometimes I worry about my students the way that I feel like a mother would probably worry about the kid. Like, if they're running around and I see them almost fall, I'm like, bro, you're being dumb. Like, walk. That, like, maternal instinct that, like, oh my God, they're gonna get hurt, or oh my God, they're failing my class, things like that. But I don't think I deal with it in the right way, how I would imagine a good mother dealing it with that to be. And so then all those things wrapped up, I'm like, yeah, nope. Maybe if you ask me a couple years from now and I forget being a teacher, it lessens the like hate for motherhood. But now I'm just like, no. I like kids, I swear, you guys.
No, you don't. Like, literally, we were outside taking a COVID test, and then a kid was just crying because, they probably got things stuck up their nose, so it's a little uncomfortable, even for an adult. She hears the crying, she's like, shut up, or you're like, oh, it's so annoying.
I just was like, oh my God, the kid's crying.
No, I swear you were like, it's so annoying.
No. The only time I said it was annoying was yesterday when we were at the cafe and there was a child in front of us. First of all, I smiled at the child and he looked away. So that was like, fuck you, kid. And then the second one was like, we're just looking at the kid and he started punching his dad's ass. And I was like, oh, hell no. Like, I get that you're like 4 years old, but like, damn, my dad would have put me in my place if I ever touched that man. So I saw that kid and I was like, he's bad.
Yeah, see, I think maybe I want a baby. I don't want a kid.
I don't know why you want baby hooks, because I feel like babies, you have to have a lot more patience.
That's fine. They don't speak.
No, but like they're crying and you don't know what they want. This is
that's
what
fine.
like
I could
I
deal
think
with
it's
that. I
harder
can't-
to take care of a talking baby than like a baby. The only annoyingness is like the crying part, but then beyond that, they don't constantly ask you why. They don't ask you dumb questions. There is such thing as dumb questions because kids ask them all the time, and like all these things that you can't be mean to them about because they're a fucking child.
I mean, sometimes it's dumb questions, but like when my nieces asks me like certain things, like, oh, what's this word? I don't find it. I'm just like, oh, like they want to learn. That's cool.
Bro, let me tell y'all, the other day I was so annoyed because I was already on my period and I was not having a good time. And so I was teaching kids idiom. And like I didn't know the Korean word for it. So I was like, oh, like when you say a piece of cake, that's an idiom. It's raining cats and dogs, it's an idiom. And I said it first and then I wrote it on the whiteboard just so that people who are visual learners, they can see it. And then like how I write my D's is I draw the circle and then the line. And so it just so happens that it was like a centimeter like off. So it looks like a C and a L. And this kid was like, teacher, haha, what is it's raining cats and clogs? And I was like, I looked at the board and I looked at this kid and I was like, really? You don't know what that says? And I was pissed. I couldn't even hold it in because I was like, are you sure you don't know what that says? Like, you don't know how to read the board? And then he like knew that he fucked up. So he was like, oh, and then he took off his glasses like he was trying to wipe it to see better. And I was just like, it's raining cats and dogs. Let me write it again. I felt bad because I was just like, I don't know what he was trying to do in class, be the class clown. Like, I don't know, but I was pissed. Like, that's the type of like, oh shit, I would be a badass mom because like I've never felt impatience and anger the way I do with kids.
So that's your picking point.
Yeah, because imagine like class after class, day after day. That's shit that you have to deal with. I get to leave them after my job. You don't if you're a mom. I cannot. And you can't even get mad at them because they're just being a fucking child. That's an excuse for them. They're a child.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Vicky is not a maternal person and doesn't want kids. Jam is not a maternal person but could have kids, but like is okay with not having. I'm a maternal person who can see a kid, but I don't want one.
Wow, we really are very different people.
So it'll work best if all three of us just shares one kid. That sounds really weird, but like if one of us have a kid and we all just like take turns taking care of it.
Who do you think would have a kid?
Jam for sure.
That's only if I meet the person that I like want to have a kid with. The thing is, I never really imagine myself with a kid, but just like between you guys, I'm like, it's kind of crazy to imagine myself. I'll be the one with the kid.
See, like right now we are young, right? It just terrifies me to think that in like 7 or 10 years, we're gonna be different than we are now because we're gonna be in different stages of our lives. So we're gonna be having very different conversations, and that literally terrifies me.
Imagine in 5 years we have a conversation. Yeah, I'm due soon.
I don't.
The whole reason why we kind of started this podcast too is for us to reflect back on how we used to be and the conversations we used to have. And like, if I ever get to the point where like maybe I do want kids, I need to think back to one, my teacher experience, and two, this conversation, because like, do I want it because I'm fucking dumb at that moment and like I lost a part of myself?
Maybe you just became another person. It doesn't mean that you lost a part of yourself. It's just like maybe something in your life that really changed you.
Like what?
I mean, obviously you can't have an answer to it now because you're in the present. So this is our episode about why we don't want kids. Let us know if you relate to us, and we're sorry if we brought new fears to you because apparently we're very good at doing that. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode and hope we didn't traumatize you in any way. And next week, hopefully we'll be back with a more fun episode. Okay, bye!
Bye.